First story. My wife started the divorce process. My wife, 27F, told me, 32M, that she needed space, so she and my two kids, 3F, 1F, stayed at her sister's, Sister 1. We live in the Midwest. I work full-time and she is a stay-at-home mom. She had a full-time job before we got married. She worked FT for a while before she got pregnant with our first daughter. She also worked PT after the birth of our first daughter. This morning, after a couple weeks staying at her sister's, she told me that she talked to a lawyer and is about to start the divorce process. She's already started to post stuff on Marketplace and sell furniture. She told me that she needs the money because she wants to get an apartment and a car. As of now, she's basically living at her sister's and using her car. I already have a consultation scheduled with a lawyer next week, but I just want your opinions on some stuff. I'm going to try to describe my wife as objectively as possible, and after reading along, you'll understand why I'm not just going to ask for 50-50 shared custody. I want full custody of our girls. Before I met her, my wife was going to commit suicide. She also threatened to commit suicide during our marriage, and had to get a psychiatric evaluation at the hospital. She suffers from a chronic illness, where she gets hospitalized a few times a year. She forgets to take her medicine, which is one of the reasons she gets hospitalized often. She has a sleeping disorder, where waking her up in the morning is worse than pulling teeth. She fails to keep our house clean. Our house is trashed most of time. She leaves food in dirty dishes for weeks until they get all moldy. Her mom was worried about our kids getting sick because of living in an unclean environment, so she reported her to CPS for neglect. We have an open case with CPS. They came to our house, which she was lucky to have cleaned before their arrival. CPS also showed up at her sister's house, where she's staying currently. To top it all off, she suffers from depression, anxiety and PTSD. Her biggest issue is that she's irresponsible, always late, missing doctor's appointments. One of her own doctors had to drop her as a client as she kept not showing up. The best example I can give of her being irresponsible is that when she was 18, her parents asked her to clean her room, which was very trashed. She refused and decided to live in her car instead, basically homeless. She claims that I'm a monster, but if I was, why would her own parents and other sister take my side? My mother-in-law has offered to babysit my kids when they're with me. I can also fly my mom here, and she can stay and watch her granddaughters as long as I need her. 1. I loved my wife, but realistically I don't think she's fit to have custody of our kids. Do you guys think I'm being unreasonable? 2. I know the system is stacked against men fathers, but what do you guys think? In my case I have a chance? Update. I suspect my wife's cheating. My wife said she needed space. She took our two kids and is staying at her sister's. The whole thing started with her calling me while I was at work. Her sister drove to our house to pick her up and help her. I found out later that my wife called the cops. When I asked her on why she had to involve law enforcement, she said that she was afraid I wouldn't let her take the kids. Her sister's roommate is a guy who went to school with my wife. After the last post, I found out that my wife checks a lot of the boxes, including changes in communication. She fails answers the phone on a number of occasions when I call and doesn't call me back. Increased interest in appearance, lip ring, nose ring. More time spent away from home. She's staying at her sister's for over a week and hasn't made an effort to bring the kids so that I can see them. Avoidance. I asked her a simple question and she didn't want to answer me. I feel as if I'm being avoided. Indifference. We haven't talked on the phone for a whole day. I called her and she replies with yes. From her acting weird, I suspect that she's cheating with me with that guy, but I hope I'm wrong. How do I confront her? Update. Alimony and child support cost in MI. Me and my wife have been married for 4 years. We have 2 kids, a boy 3 and a girl 1. We live in Michigan. I'm the breadwinner of the family. My monthly net income is $4,000. She is a stay-at-home wife. She's been staying at her parents' with our kids for a month and now she said she wants a divorce. I've checked those online calculators but each one of them gives me a different value, hence this post. Yes, I know I need to consult with a divorce lawyer, but I just want to have an idea. How much should I expect to pay in child support and alimony, and how long are the alimony payments going to last? Thank you in advance. Update. Alimony length in Michigan. Me and my wife have been married for 4 years. We have 2 kids, a boy 3 and a girl 1. We live in Michigan. She's starting to think about divorce if things don't work out between us and told me that if that happens, I have to keep paying her alimony and MI forever, until she either remarries or die? Is that true? Update. Fed up with divorce threats. My wife, 4 years married, 2 kids finally decided to come back home, after staying at her parents for about a month. She had a list of demands and I did as well. This period gave me a lot of time to reflect, and I came to the realization that our marriage has basically a 50% chance of working out for the following reasons. 1. Every time we get into an argument, she threatens me with divorce. 2. She has so many demands but then doesn't want to hold herself accountable for her actions. For instance, we agreed not to call each other names. In our last argument, she called me a motherfucker. Then I called her a cunt. I kept explaining to her that I wouldn't have called her that, had she not called me a motherfucker. She did not want to hear it. 3. She's immature. Whenever things don't go her way, she just up and leaves, instead of facing her problems like an adult. 4. She's shopaholic and a hoarder. The amount of unnecessary crap we have in our house is astonishing. She's also not financially responsible. She spends most of her money on Amazon Prime orders and takeout. 5. She sees me like a bank. She expects that I pay all the bills, her maintenance, give her an allowance, help her with the kids, which I do anyway because I'm their father, and around the house. But then when it comes to cooking and cleaning, she doesn't keep up with her responsibilities. I had to cook breakfast, lunch, dinner, and do laundry so many times even though I work full-time, sometimes 12 hours per day. 6. Our house gets so dirty. I feel embarrassed and ashamed of inviting anybody over. I haven't had my friends over in a very long time. 7. I feel like nothing I do will be enough for her. Like she came back this Monday. I got her flowers and chocolate and a spa day. And earlier she told me that she doesn't feel I'm fighting to keep her. 8. I found out that she was recording our conversations without my knowledge. 9. She likes to have rough sex. A lot of times she asks me to choke her while we're having sex. After our last argument, she falsely accused me of raping her. 10. That's all I can remember for now. In addition, I'm not perfect, but at least I admit when I make a mistake and always strive to improve and find a solution. I decided to implement a 6-month plan where I will work on myself, as she requested, and document if she's really working on herself too. In the case we ended up getting a divorce, I'm planning to do joint custody 50-50 of our son 3 and daughter 1. Before she met me, she had a full-time job. She told me would work up to 70 hours per week, and was renting an apartment. After we got married, she took a part-time job, 20 hours per week. And then this month she started another part-time job, over 20 hours per week. I don't mind paying child support to her. I'll do anything for my kids since I love them more than anything. But I don't want to pay a lot in alimony. Spousal support. We live in Michigan. As she can support herself, in her mind, she thinks that I'll be paying alimony until she remarries, dies. So what are the things I can do, starting now, to help my case? Update. I decided to file for a divorce. I have been married to my wife for 4 years. We have 2 kids, a boy 3 and a girl 1. We live in Michigan. I work full-time and my net salary is $4,200 per month. She's a Psalm, but she started a part-time job recently where she makes about $100 a day. Before we got married, she had a FT job working up to 60 HRS week. We've been having problems for over 2 years now, and no matter what I've tried, nothing has worked with this lady. Without getting into much detail, I decided to file for a divorce in 6 months from now unless I see some real positive change from her side. I will apply for shared custody for my kids 50-50. What pieces of advice and what mistakes should I avoid doing can you guys give me so that everything goes smoothly? Update: STBXW is cheating on me. Me and my STBXW are currently going through a divorce. We have 2 toddlers. My wife took our daughters and is now staying at her sister's. I found out that she's been calling and texting this number a lot, like multiple times a day, and the calls sometimes last over an hour. I was able to verify this person's identity. It's someone she knew back from high school. He lives close to her sister's house. I believe my wife is cheating on me with this guy. Now I don't really care what she does, but I just want to use that in court, because she's the one who left me. How do I need to proceed? Should I talk to him? Any advice would be greatly appreciated. Update: what are the odds of me getting 50-50 custody of my daughters? Me and my STBXW have been married for 4 years. We have 2 daughters, 1 and 3-year-old. My wife was working, but then decided to become a stay-at-home mom after our first daughter was born. My STBXW said she needed space, went to her sister's. During her stay there, I felt something was off. When I confronted her, she told me that she started contacting a lawyer to file for a divorce. I already retained a lawyer and filed for divorce about 2 weeks ago. But my wife refuses to sign the papers because she doesn't want me to have the kids 50-50. She said she only wants me to have them on the weekend. Realistically, what are the odds of me getting 50-50 custody of my daughters? We live in Michigan. Update: how to deal with my STBX during our divorce. I'm 2 months into my divorce with my STBX. We have 2 children, 1 and 3. Without going into too much detail, my STBX is toxic, selfish, irresponsible, immature, lazy, a slob, with poor judgment and a pattern of poor decisions. I've been trying to be civil and cooperative, but earlier today while talking on the phone, my STBX called me a fucking dumbass, so I hung up on her. She kept calling and I just kept ignoring her. Then I texted her that moving forward, she should not call me unless it's an emergency, and that she can always email me. This got me thinking, from your humble experiences, what do you guys think the do's and don'ts of dealing with my STBX so that I can keep this process as smooth as possible until our divorce is finalized? Update: backpedaling. My STBX wife asked me if she and our 2 toddlers can stay at her sister's because she needs some space. A couple weeks later, I learned that she's been in contact with a lawyer to file for divorce. I retained my lawyer and ended up filing before her, even though she had a 4 weeks head start. She stayed at her sister's for 6 weeks and then at her parents' for 2 weeks. She got in a fight with her mom, oil meets fire, and called the police on her. She called me in a panic, crying and begging me to take her to my house. Now she told me that she never wanted to file for divorce, she just wanted me to treat her right. Now here's where it gets f'd up. I found out that she went on 2 dates. The first date was with one of her exes, whom she added on FB, asked out, took our kids. She told him that she regretted breaking out with him. The second one with some guy from high school, who was playing with my kids. What makes matters worse is that she barely showed any remorse about this. She said that felt lonely while staying at her sister's and she just wanted to talk to people. She also in half a dozen dating apps. And now she said that she wants us to work on our marriage and wants me to give her a chance. I don't think I can get over her going on dates with her ex and letting some stranger play with my kids. Also, if you never intended to file for divorce, why didn't you suggest marriage counseling? And if you wanted to work on our marriage, why did you go on 2 dates? What do you guys think? Update: Wife filed for divorce then backpedaled. My wife asked me if she and our two toddlers can stay at her sister's because she needs some space. A couple weeks later, I learned that she's been in contact with a lawyer to file for divorce. I retained my lawyer and ended up filing before her, even though she had a 4 weeks head start. She stayed at her sister's for 6 weeks and then at her parents' for 2 weeks. She got in a fight with her mom, oil meets fire, and called the police on her. She called me in a panic, crying and begging me to take her to my house. Now she told me that she never wanted to file for divorce, she just wanted me to treat her right. Now here's where it gets ducked up. I found out that she went on 2 dates. The first date was with one of her exes, whom she added on FB, asked out, took our kids. She told him that she regretted breaking out with him. The second one with some guy from high school, who she let play with my kids. What makes matters worse is that she barely showed any remorse about this. She said that felt lonely while staying at her sister's and she just wanted to talk to people. She's also in half a dozen dating apps. And now she said that she wants us to work on our marriage and wants me to give her a chance. I don't think I can get over her going on dates with her ex and letting some stranger play with my kids. Also, if you never intended to file for divorce, why didn't you suggest marriage counseling? And if you wanted to work on our marriage, why did you go on 2 dates? What do you guys think? I just learned that she asked her ex if he can consider going on a date with her eventually. She claims that when he met him the first time, it was not date but just them catching up. I was able to see some of the texts between her and her ex. She messaged him 2 days before she left to her sister's. Here it goes, and I quote, "Hey ex, I know you're probably married and I know you have kids, but there's something I've been wanting to tell you for a very long time. I just want you to know that leaving you is one of the single biggest regrets of my life. I have never been able to be myself around anyone like you. I've been carrying the weight from this on my chest and I just needed to finally say it and I'm sorry. I know you're over it but it's something I never got over. And I don't expect you to message me back or anything but I really needed to say it so that I can stop having so much regret. I know it's been years and this is very random, so I'm sorry to just put this on you. I hope you're doing well. I still live with my husband, but we've slept in separate rooms for a little over a year. I've been trying to leave him for like over a year, but it's just hard to find resources. I'm financially dependent on him and I don't have a car unfortunately. We're basically only together so that my kids can have a stable home. But once I find a good divorce lawyer and save up enough to get my own car, I'll be out of her. Honestly I'm married and I realized for a long time ago that he's never gonna be the one for me and I've been trying to leave for about a year now. He's not a good person at all. I hope to have a good co-parenting with him but I don't see that happening. Actually, I don't see him getting even partial custody of our children, honestly, but of course I'd want my children to see him. You have no idea how good it feels to finally get all of this off of my chest. I've been wanting to tell you for the longest time. Honestly, it's been this way for a long time. But most women leave emotionally before they physically leave. It's been years since I've been happy. And I feel the reason I've been putting it off is because I know it's probably gonna be ugly during the divorce. My husband is a pretty mean person honestly. He's, my husband, probably the worst I've ever been with honestly. I was getting ready to leave a few years ago, until I found out I was pregnant with my youngest child. So that put a damper on me that day lol because I love children, it was bittersweet. Last thing she asked him if he wanted to go on a date eventually and he said, according to her, that he'll consider once our divorce is finalized. Update: staying married or getting a divorce. Me and my wife have been married for 4 years. We have 2 children, 1 and 3. She was working but decided to become a stay-at-home mom after our first was born. She's a HS dropout. I'm an engineer. I'm going to be as objective and impartial as I can be. When she was pregnant, she told me that she wanted to be close to her family, so we moved across the country. I was looking for an apartment for us, and her mom offered for us to stay with them until we do. Here's where it started going downhill. I had no idea that her relationship with her mom was so dysfunctional. Actually, with most of her family. So my wife and her mom kept fighting. Now in that toxic environment, I started smoking weed. Well, I started texting random people that I don't know. Some of those texts were prank. Is your fridge working? Well, it needs to pay taxes. Some of those random people were women, and some of those texts were graphic. My wife found out, and of course she was devastated. I owned up to it, apologized, like a billion times, and offered everything to fix it, including giving her the passwords to all my social media accounts. She put cameras in my office, our bedroom, and the freaking bathroom. Whenever she'd ask to see my phone, I'd give it to her, and I always shared my location. Now, to be fair, I didn't know any of these women, I didn't meet with them, and I certainly did not sleep with any of them. Now I'll try to depict her and stick to facts. She's immature, irresponsible, toxic, ungrateful, inconsiderate, and disrespectful. She keeps criticizing me, not constructively, but in a way that implies that something's wrong with me. And also as a way to attack my personality and character. She argues to argue. I think she actually loves to argue. Her intent is to win and prove me wrong, not fix our issues. Her favorite words are "you always" and "you never." She acts like a victim as to not take responsibility for her mistakes. She cross-complains a lot. She matches my complaint or constructive criticism with one of her own, and then ignores what I said. She exaggerates my flaws in order to deflect attention for her own poor choices. She points out my flaws to avoid taking responsibility for her own mistakes. She lacks a sense of responsibility. Can't keep the house clean to the point where there's blue and green mold in food and dishes. Her mom and sister would come to help her set a plan, but she never stick to it. Her mom got so fed up and concerned about our kids that she's called CPS on her. In addition, she doesn't wake up and leave the kids in their room for hours. Some days where I worked from home, our oldest had his hand stuck and was crying, and she was just sleeping in the room next door. Another time I went to check on him, and he was sitting and playing in his poop while she was snoring. She expects people to treat her as an adult, and yet acts like a teenager. Immaturity. She's narcissistic. She always tell me, "You have to make me happy." Yeah, but about my happiness, I don't deserve to be happy. She's negative, pessimistic, and cynical. I was nothing but supportive and helpful to her. I would help her around the house, with the kids too obviously. She'll find me on her side when she gets sick or stays at the hospital. She has a chronic illness. Whenever she tries to start a business, I'll always help and support her. I got her an iPad so that she can get her GED. I encouraged her to go to college. Again, to be fair, I don't tolerate disrespect. So when I get disrespected, I became the meanest mother of care you've ever met. I can't live in trash, and she's a lazy slob and a hoarder. Now fast forward to a couple months ago. My wife asked me if she and our 2 toddlers can stay at her sister's because she needs some space. A couple weeks later, I learned that she's been in contact with a lawyer to file for divorce. I retained my lawyer and ended up filing before her, even though she had a 4 weeks head start. I'm demanding 50-50 child custody. Update. How do I coexist with my wife while going through a divorce? After my wife left to file for divorce and go on dates, she came back with my 2 toddlers to my house about 3 weeks ago. I asked her if she's still talking to any other men. She said she stopped after she moved back in with me. I found out that not only she's still talking to other men, she's still on dating apps. I know she's lying, but she doesn't know that I know. I'm moving forward with my divorce and 50-50 child custody. How do I coexist with her for the next 9 out of 10 months during our divorce, while she's living in my house, knowing that she's a lying sack of shit? Second story. Concerned husband about wife. It feels wrong to even make this post. I never thought this would ever cross my mind during my marriage. My wife is incredibly kind. We have been together for nearly 15 years, married for 8. She's one of the last people I thought I'd ever consider would not be faithful, and odds are she hasn't went that route, but recent behavior has led me to lose trust, and it crosses my mind that maybe, just maybe, she could be having an emotional affair. I couldn't imagine her ever going physical route. Even the one friend I opened up to on the details said there's no possible way, man, you're being paranoid. My wife had lost a bunch of weight after our second child at a fast rate. I suspected she was using Ozempic. From 190 pounds after second child, most she ever weighed. Note, she has always struggled with body dysmorphia despite her being gorgeous. Seriously though, she's stunning, and that's not me being biased. Anyways, from 190 130 in about a year, but the weight loss just didn't look natural. I commented on her weight loss and complimented her. I asked how she was able to have such success, and she didn't bring up meds, so I left it alone. One day I stumbled across a hidden bag in the fridge with semaglutide syringes. I felt bad. She felt like she couldn't tell me, but also understand it's a sensitive topic for her. I remember hearing about the high cost of it, yet I couldn't find it on bank statement. She is a mom with our 2 kids under the age of 5. She gets my check in cash to deposit in bank. We have our own separate credit cards. After doing some digging, I saw where we had charges to a loan company in our bank statement. Long story short, I found out my wife had hidden debt and we had been paying a large amount in interest alone. The debt left to pay was $40K. I was shocked. I couldn't believe my wife had done that. I've always been loose with letting her spend, with the occasional, we need to cut back on our Amazon spending. I knew she would overspend from time to time, but I didn't think much of it. But this had me physically sick. After bringing just a few details up, I wanted to see her reaction to see if she would come clean. She lied about all of it. I waited a few days thinking she may fess up to it, but she never did, so I came out with all of it. She didn't seem to be that apologetic. I wrote it off to the shame she was feeling made it hard to do that. Next day she seemed distant. I asked her if she was okay. She seemed distant. She replied, "I'm surprised you noticed," then went on a big spill about how I never loved her and that I'm emotionally unavailable. She then told me to really think hard about if I love her or not. She feels like she's the only one pursuing. What really got me was when she said this: "If you don't love me, it's okay. I felt like I pressured you from beginning to marry me even though I know you didn't love me like I loved you. We both deserve happiness. We can still be friends. We could be great co-parents. You can get the kids anytime you want. We are both getting older and deserve to be loved and naturally desire to love." I was appalled by her statement. I find out about the meds and debt from what appears mostly shopping. Then, all of a sudden, she is making talks of divorce. I was in tears asking why she would say all of that, but she's right. I've been emotionally unavailable. She's somewhat brought it up before. I work 80 hours a week 6 months out of the year, then 50 or so the rest. I've found myself not giving her enough time and attention. She said she's just tired and exhausted from trying to get me to be present with her. I want to be a better husband. I offered for us to do marriage counseling. She said they wouldn't help. I needed to naturally want to do that, not forced. This conversation led to doom in my stomach. With tears in my eyes, I asked, "Are you having an affair?" She gave me a disgusted look and said, "Really?" Then she said no and said, "When would I even have time?" She does have the kids and one of them is a 1-year-old, but there are times the parents keep them. If I'm being honest, I don't feel she's having an affair of any sort. But those comments she made I can't get out of my mind. She was lying about the debt and not being transparent when I found out. She wouldn't give details until I confessed I already knew about it, then she would tell it. If she lied about that, she surely would lie about this. I've been sick to my stomach since. This was a couple weeks ago. Right now, we are doing fantastic. I'm being the husband I should be. I've listened to podcasts and read articles about a woman's love language. I want to be the husband she needs. I've felt the need to snoop after all of this. I don't have her phone password. I've never had a thought to look into her stuff. I can see recent searches on iPad. It's got same iCloud as her phone. Nothing out of the ordinary on it except night we argued. She googled what does the Bible say about divorce along with diet med stuff, which made me sick. We are both Christians. No communication apps on all purchase apps which I can see on iPad. Phone bill, which is limited since I can't see Wi-Fi stuff and she's so practically stays on Wi-Fi. Only thing I know to check that are left are Facebook and Instagram messages. I couldn't figure out password and she keeps her phone on her most of the time so not many attempts. I usually get her phone when it's time for upgrade and let her get the new one. Well, since my phone is giving me trouble I felt like now would be a good time. I thought if I could get her phone and my phone to bring to phone store that I could get access, they could copy her stuff to put on her new phone. Then I could wait till next day to get her stuff off old one to put mine on it. That gives me one day to go through it. It feels so wrong. The spending and outburst is extremely out of character for her. I feel this came about due to the shame from getting exposed along with my unavailability emotionally. Am I being paranoid? Should I not go through with this? I want to rebuild trust and feel like if I can get 95% certainty that I'll rebuild it back stronger than ever with this clarification. If you feel that I should, what should I do once her phone is in my possession? I don't want it to alert her that I'm snooping once she has her new phone. She also has a smartwatch. Any tips or advice on all of this? Please let me know. I'm praying for each and every one of you going through problems with spouse. Such an awful gut-wrenching feeling. Edit, hiding the debt was sophisticated. She had multiple bank accounts. When I offered to see them, all she said was they have no money in them. Seems like she would offer them without me asking for transparency. Then when I named bank accounts and left one off, I asked if that was all and she said yes. I kept saying, "Are you sure?" Then she admitted to the one I left off. I don't understand why she wouldn't tell me. I brought up all the bad. Why not tell everything since it's already been uncovered? She also searched how would someone know which banks you use. No indication of cheating from email either. I forgot to add. Update. I've decided I'm going to go through with going through her phone when we update phones. It will be in next day or two. Although I still feel cheating is highly unlikely, I still like confirmation. The deciding factor for me was there being a better chance of more financial infidelity going on, and I'll likely be able to get banking info from saved logins. She's innocent of cheating until proven guilty. I'm going in with the confidence that this behavior stemmed from both of us being disconnected in last 2 years, not because of someone else. Any advice on steps I need to take or iPhone tips tricks is much appreciated. I'm going to get 24 hours with it. I'll update when I do. Thanks everyone for your input. I appreciate it more than you'll ever know. Update. Great news. I've went through the phone bill for the last year. Not a single shred of evidence in phone calls. Texts only show ones that weren't using Wi-Fi or iMessage since that shows up as data. No evidence or anything suspicious there. She was very involved with her different bank accounts and finding a medical doctor or methods to get semaglutide Ozempic. Her story of when she started the diet meds lined up with her phone calls, texts. I've went through one of the 3 credit cards she accumulated debt on. The one card I went through 10K was more or less all Target and Walmart. I seen all the Walmart receipts. Just reckless spending tbh. I'm most curious about the 2 Chase cards, 14K and 5K, and bank accounts. You'll surprise her one day and stop by bank to get them to print them off. The last of the debt is from a loan that she used to pay off a credit card, just to max it out again. Loan is around 10K. Debt is 40K total. I was also able to get access to her texts from smartwatch. Nothing suspicious in there. Although I couldn't access the deleted folder like on an iPhone, but it seemed she had kept text from months ago. I also gained access to Instagram. Nothing suspicious in chats there either. All I feel like that's left to go through is Facebook stuff, banks, and credit card statements. I searched high and low for a second cell phone but nothing found. I've been paying close attention to her and she doesn't seem to be odd or anything. We have had very good deep conversations recently while spending time together. My trust with her is getting better each day. I've seen from search results history she is actively hunting for a job. Emails shows that she has frozen each credit card. At the end of the day, I feel the best advice in the first thread was to hope for the best but prepare for the worst. I know her better than anyone despite the secrets the past 2 years. Her behavior doesn't show any signs of an affair. The comments made during the heat of the moment was my only indication of there being a slim chance. I will continue to update you guys. My hopes is that she will agree to counseling when I bring it up again. I want to fix the spending problem more so than pay off the debt. Obviously, be a better husband as well by being emotionally available. Feel free to voice your thoughts and/or ask questions. Thank you all so much. Worth noting that my wife started antidepressants after first child PPD and stayed on them. Since she's focused on her looks health, she's been on metformin daily semaglutide, a Ozempic knockoff, and most recently the past month or so Focalin, ADHD med. My wife is closer to underweight than overweight at the moment and has been for a few months. She's been more confident in herself, which is great to see.